Let's talk about something that flips everything you thought you knew about money completely upside down. We're diving into a strange central bank experiment that has basically turned the global economy into a kind of mirror world.
Okay, let me ask you something. What if, instead of earning interest on your savings, you actually had to pay the bank just to hold on to your money for you? Sounds pretty bizarre, right? Almost like something from a movie.
But the thing is, this isn't some crazy hypothetical. It is happening right now in major economies like Europe and Japan. The basic rules of money, rules that have been around for centuries, are being totally rewritten as we speak.
The old rules were pretty simple, right? You save your money, you earn a little interest. But in this new mirror world, the entire script is flipped. Now savers are the ones getting penalized, and in some really strange situations, borrowers are the ones actually getting paid. It's a complete rewrite of how money is supposed to work.
So, how on earth did we get here? Well, it all started when central banks decided to break one of the most fundamental rules of economics.
You see, for the longest time, economists believed in this thing called the zero lower bound. It was like a theoretical floor. The idea was simple. Interest rates just can't go below zero. I mean, why would they? If they did, why would anyone even lend money? You could just hold on to your physical cash instead, right?
But faced with really sluggish economies, central banks in places like Europe and Japan decided to do the unthinkable. They just smashed right through that floor. And this wasn't just a tiny step. It was a radical experiment, pushing the entire global financial system into completely uncharted territory.
And just to be clear, this isn't just a theory. Negative 0.5% has been a real policy rate from the European Central Bank. What that means is they are actively charging commercial banks for the privilege of holding on to their own cash reserves.
So, how does this actually work in practice? Well, at its core, it's really just a penalty system, and it's designed for one very specific purpose.
Probably the simplest way to get your head around it is to think of it as a penalty for playing it too safe with money. Central banks want cash to be moving through the economy, not just sitting in a bank vault somewhere. So they've come up with a system to make hoarding that cash expensive.
So here's how it's supposed to work. Step 1, the central bank slaps negative rates on the commercial banks. Step 2, this means the commercial banks now have to pay a fee on any excess cash they're holding. All of a sudden, sitting on a pile of cash is a losing game. So, step 3, the idea is this will push them to lend that money out to businesses and people, which, step 4, should jumpstart the economy. At least that's the theory.
Yeah, but here's the problem. What happens when this high-level policy stops being a neat theory in a boardroom and starts trickling down into the real world?
Because this isn't just some headache for the big banks. Oh no. It has a direct ripple effect that eventually finds its way to your local branch and into your own finances. Think about it. When commercial banks get charged to hold money, they're not just going to absorb that cost. Of course not. They pass it on. At first, they pass it to their big corporate clients and the super wealthy. But eventually, that pressure builds and it trickles down, right to everyday savers like you and me. And this is where that whole mirror world thing becomes very personal. The entire purpose of a savings account gets turned on its head. What was once a simple tool for growing your wealth slowly over time suddenly becomes a liability, an account that could literally cost you money just for existing. Now, it's really easy to look at all this and think it's just a temporary glitch, right? Some weird emergency measure for a bad economy. But the data suggests something much, much bigger is going on here.
To really understand this, we need to talk about a concept called the neutral rate of interest. Just think of it as the Goldilocks rate for the economy. Not too hot to cause inflation, not too cold to cause a recession. It's the theoretical rate that keeps everything in perfect balance.
So what this timeline shows us is this really long, decades-long downward trend. Things like aging populations who tend to save more and slowing productivity growth have just consistently pushed this perfect rate lower and lower and lower. So today, for a lot of advanced economies, it's hovering right around or even below zero.
And this is the part that a lot of people miss. Because that neutral rate is so incredibly low, negative interest rates aren't some fringe theory or a crazy last resort anymore. No, they're quickly becoming a standard tool in the playbook for any central bank that's facing an economic slowdown.
So what's the real takeaway from all of this? Well, the mirror world is here, and the biggest risk isn't just a small fee on your savings account. It's what this quote gets at. It's the long-term stability of a global banking system that was just never, ever designed to run in reverse.
Which brings everything full circle back to a very personal question. In a world where saving money can actually cost you money, what do you do? Because one thing is for sure, the old rules no longer apply.